So today we are very fortunate that we are having His Grace Ram Giridhari Prabhu to enlighten us on Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Prabhuji, are you present on the call?
Yeah, Mataji, I'm there.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much Prabhuji for your valuable association and time. So now you please take over the call. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So today we are reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text number 161. This is a chapter in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is preaching to Sripad Rupa Goswami, and this particular series that we are currently discussing now is one of the core aspects of Mahaprabhu's teachings to Rupa Goswami, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is now dwelling on some very deeper aspects of the Siddhanta, and he is explaining about the Bhakti Creeper, how this Bhakti Creeper is slowly progressing and growing, and eventually it is reaching up to the spiritual abode. And Mahaprabhu is explaining about the nitty-gritties and some finer details about this Bhakti Lata Bij. So we'll read the shloka as well as the translation and the purport and discuss further on this. Pratame upashakara karaye chedana tabe mula shakha bhadi yaya vrindavana. Translation: as soon as an intelligent devotee sees an unwanted creeper growing beside the original creeper, he must cut it down instantly. Then the real creeper, the Bhakti Lata, grows nicely, returns home, back to Godhead, and seeks shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. If one is misled by unwanted creepers and is victimized, he cannot make progress back to Godhead. Rather, he remains within the material world and engages in activities having nothing to do with pure devotional service. Such a person may be elevated to the higher planetary systems, but because he remains within the material world, he is subjected to the threefold material miseries. We will only discuss this particular verse, and we will go deeper into this particular shloka as well as this particular series of verses. So before we discuss the details, let's offer our obeisances to all the predecessor acharyas. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanyam Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंगायते गिरिं यत्कृपादमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दिनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरम्. So this particular series, the part that we are going to discuss, wherein the pure devotional service, talking about how the love that we receive from the Supreme Lord has to be very nicely cultivated, and this cultivation of the pure love, the seed of pure love, is to be very responsibly taken. If after getting this human form of life, if we don't take responsibility and try to take care of the seed that we have received by the mercy of the Lord, then we are very, very unfortunate. So this particular series, or this set of few verses, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining Rupa Goswami about pure devotional service. So in our discussion today, we are going to have slightly technical aspect of Krishna consciousness discussed. So this particular technicalities are needed to be understood for us to eventually apply in our life and reflect within ourselves. So Rupa Goswami is being told by Mahaprabhu how this Bhakti Lata Bij is now growing like a very nice creeper, and if we give them very conducive environment, this will penetrate the materialistic layer and eventually reach the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. In our last week's discussion, we discussed how there are 6 different stages of development of consciousness, from sinful mentality to pure devotional service, and how when we go on deeper in our devotional life, we add something to our devotional life and we remove something from our devotional life. We discussed that how from in sinful life, whilst we acquire materialistic things, the seed of Krishna consciousness, when we receive, makes us question those acquisitions, and when the seed is watered nicely, we start to understand and reject what that is obstacle in the devotional life. And as a part of rejecting materialistic things, we start adopting spiritual lifestyle. And as we go more deeper in our devotional life, when all auspiciousness come upon us, when all good things come upon us, when unwanted things get removed, which is the characteristics of pure devotional service, we also start to question our spiritual acquisitions, thinking, are they really spiritual or they are look-alike spiritual? You must have discussed in our yesterday's shloka, text number 160, where Srila Prabhupada is very nicely writing about if one does not distinguish between the Bhakti creeper and the other creepers, the sprinkling of water is misused because the other creepers are nourished while the bhakti creeper is cultivated. So this particular purpose Prabhupada very nicely explains that we need to be very careful in our cultivation of Krishna consciousness, where if we misunderstand anartha as expression and a devotion as an anartha, then we will definitely be cultivating something unwanted. So, many unwanted things has been identified in the purport. Where he is explaining, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj is giving a very wonderful explanation for this particular set of unwanted things: kutinati, puja, labha, pratishtha, and various things that you all must have definitely discussed yesterday. So in our today's discussion, we will talk about three aspects of it. Two of them we discussed before, but I'll once again touch base on them quickly to get into the context. And the third aspect of it we will discuss slightly detailed. So the first part of it is to define bhakti. So there are two definitions of bhakti that Shastra says. One is devotional service, another one is pure devotional service. Sarvopadi-muktam tatparatyekam rishikena rishikeshasenam bhaktiruchyate. So the description is, whenever we get rid of all the false designations attached to us, when we are purified of those designations, and with that purified state, if we engage ourselves in satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord, that is what is devotion. This definition has got two parts or two directions. It's a bidirectional definition. One is by getting rid of the designation, by purifying because of the designations lost, we will be able to serve the Supreme Lord. The other direction is by serving the Supreme Lord constantly, the designations that we attach to ourselves get purified and we get situated in devotional service. This is bhakti. But Rupa Goswami wants us to do pure bhakti. Because last week we saw about bhakti and pure bhakti too. Whilst we discussed about bhakti, we discussed this is a stage of spiritual questioning. But when we spoke about pure devotional service, it is a stage of rejecting what seemingly spiritual but as an obstacle in our devotional service, and eventually focusing on the core and deeper and purest form of devotion. So when defining about pure devotional service, Rupa Goswami explains about Anyabilashita Sunyam Dhyana Karma Dhyanavritam Anukulena Krishnaanusilanam Bhaktiruttama. So while giving definition about this in Nectar of Devotion, Sripad Rupa Goswami explains. So he is explaining in the 3rd canto, 29th chapter, verse number 12 and 13. He explains that pure devotional service has got many characteristic features. So this is 3.29.12 and 13. And when explaining about those pure devotional service, this is a conversation between Kapila Dev and Devahuti. My dear mother, those who are my pure devotees and who have no desire for material benefit or philosophical speculations, have their minds so much engaged in my service that they are never interested in asking me for anything except to be engaged in that service. So it is very nicely explained. In fact, further it says, they do not even beg to live in my abode with me. So Srila Prabhupada gives a very interesting purport to this verse 12 and 13, where he explains about three technical aspects or three nature of pure devotional service, or three important symptoms that we need to inculcate as a part of our cultivation of pure devotional service. Number one, he says, avichinna. Number two, he says, avyavahita. And number three, he says, ahaituki. So when he explains about these three parts, he says, this pure devotional service to be done, ahaituki. Ahaituki means without reason. A pure devotee does not render loving service to the personality of Godhead for any cause or for any benefit, material or spiritual. The first symptom of unalloyed devotion, this is the first symptom of unalloyed devotion. So, Srila Prabhupada explains in that purport that how it is important for us to inculcate this quality of ahaituki. The second quality that is spoken about by Srila Prabhupada in that purport is called avyavahita, which means without cessation. A pure devotee must engage in the service of the Lord 24 hours a day without cessation. His life is so molded that every minute and every second he engages in some sort of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Another meaning of the word avyavahita is that the interest of the devotee and the interest of the Supreme Lord are on the same level. The devotee has no interest but to fulfill the transcendental desire of the Supreme Lord. Such spontaneous service unto the Supreme Lord is transcendental and is never contaminated by the material modes of nature. These are the symptoms of pure devotional service, which is free from all contamination of material nature. So this is avyavahita. And there's a third quality that Srila Prabhupada talks about, called avichinna. Avichinna means without interruptions. Is very important because no material condition can stop the flow of devotional service of a pure devotee. So our first reflection in today's discussion is that how that pure devotional service, we discussed about devotional service, and while discussing about pure devotional service, some three important characteristics are being spoken about. Of course, there are further 6 more characteristics Rupa Goswami is talking. So those three are, that I just read now, is ahaituki, which means pure devotional service is done without any reason, which means without any material reason. Number 2 is avyavahita, which means without any cessation, absolutely 24/7, the devotee is thinking about the Lord is thinking about the devotee. And third is avichinna, without any interruptions. So no materialistic activities interrupt, or no materialistic thoughts interrupt a devotee's execution of devotional service. In Kevalashtakam, there is a very nice stanza that we sing. Diyatam diyatam karno niyatam niyatam vacha ghiyatam ghiyatam nityam hare namaiva kevalam. How we are supposed to utilize our time, engage our senses. Ghiyatam ghiyatam nityam hare namaiva kevalam. So this pure devotional service is so interesting. It is so great. It is so deeper. It is so pure and transcendental that no materialistic thoughts, no materialistic activities, no materialistic disturbances, no materialistic reasons can stop it. So our first reflection is, what is this bhakti and pure bhakti? We have discussed this plenty of times, but as I said, to put this into the context, I just want to say this. So the second reflection of today's discussion is about two initial characteristics that Rupa Goswami explains in Nectar of Devotion after discussing this particular 3 points. Rupa Goswami explains, Prabhupada writes, in the above statement by Kapila Deva from Srimad Bhagavatam, the actual position of a pure devotee is described, and the primary characteristics of devotional services are also defined. Further characteristics of devotional service are described by Rupa Goswami with evidences from different scriptures. He states that there are 6 characteristics of pure devotional service, which are as follows. So there are 6 characteristics he explains. Of that, the first one is called Kleshagni. Pure devotional service brings immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. So Kleshagni means it can bring in all kinds of, it brings in relief from all kinds of material distress. And elsewhere, we have discussed that what are the kind of material distresses we could think of. Whatever that you think seemingly as a material distress, and whatever we think seemingly that is a material success, which in turn is a spiritual disturbance, they are all removed by pure devotional service. And the second characteristic feature that Rupa Goswami explained is Shubhadha. Pure devotional service brings in all auspiciousness. So there's a detailed analysis of klesha. So in our second set of reflections, I'm going to throw light upon those 5 primary categories of kleshas. There are a lot of byproducts, there are a lot of details about each of them, but at least let us touch base on the 5 primary categories. Number 1, avidya, which means ignorance. Number 2 is asmita, which means false ego. Number 3 is raga, which means attachment. Number 4 is dvesha, which means hatred. Number 5 is abhinivesha, which means one who is attached to sense enjoyment and is afraid that death will take it away. So Rupa Goswami, when he was explaining about Klesha Agni, that pure devotional service has a power to purify all the unwanted things that are accumulated in our heart. He mentions about these categories of klesha which are falling under these 5 major things. Ignorance, which means to falsely identify with or not to have proper understanding about the spirit, soul and this body. Second is asmita, false ego, which means to identify with the body or to accept things which can be experienced on the gross level. And third is raga, attachment, the desire for material happiness or for less suffering. Fourth is dvesha, hatred, aversion to unhappiness or the causes of unhappiness. And abhinivesha, as I said, one who is attached to the sense enjoyment to an extent that he is fearing about death will take it away. So pure devotional service has the power to completely uproot all these five categories of klesha. So the pure devotional service that Rupa Goswami is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining to Rupa Goswami in this current context, he is having the power, the pure devotional service that we are currently practicing by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada is having the potency, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, that we are chanting with the beads, is just not some sound vibration. It is a so powerful mantra which has got the potency to do what we just spoke about, for which we are suffering and struggling and trying to figure it out. How do I get rid of this problem? So ignorance, false ego, attachment, hatred, and sense enjoyments about our fear of death and how we, what will happen to our all acquisitions. So these 5 types of categories are immediately cleared off when somebody takes up pure devotional service. So with respect to Shubhada, like how he spoke about the kleshas, Rupa Goswami is also talking about Shubhada, which means pure devotional service brings in all auspiciousness. So when it brings to all auspiciousness, it is very interesting. Srila Prabhupada gives a fantastic explanation in Nectar of Devotion. He says, pure devotional service is so sublime. Is so sublime that even if somebody at some point in time, somewhere, in some part of the world, performing devotional service sincerely for the benefit of humanity at large, the benefit is given to humanity at large. We might be wondering how we received this. We might be wondering, how did I get this pure devotional service? I didn't do anything. I did not take any endeavor. I didn't step out of my house to do any simple task for performing my bhakti. But how am I getting devotion? Srila Prabhupada very nicely explains that this pure devotional service, which brings in auspiciousness wherever, whichever part of the world somebody is in. They can get very nice. I'll just read one portion of purport from Nectar of Devotion. One who is not in Krishna consciousness usually cannot sit silently even for half an hour. The yoga system teaches that if you become silent, you will realize that you are in God. This system may be all right for materialistic persons, but how long will they be able to keep themselves silent? Artificially, they may sit down for so-called meditation, but immediately after their yogic performance, they will engage themselves again in such activities as illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, and many other nonsensical things. But a Krishna conscious person gradually elevates himself without endeavoring for this so-called silent meditation. Simply because he is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he automatically gives up all this nonsense and develops a high character. One develops the highest character by becoming a pure devotee of Krishna. The conclusion is that no one can truly have any good qualities if he is lacking Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada explains in this particular series of Nectar of Devotion that this pure devotional service can actually bring in all auspiciousness to an extent that Krishna will eventually get attracted. That's the sixth characteristics. So my second set of reflection that I wanted to touch base today is that this pure devotional service that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is talking about, the real creeper that he's speaking about, he's talking about being careful in identifying some false creeper. The reason why we need to do all these things is because this Bhakti Latha can give us Krishna. And that which can give us Krishna, that which can take us to Krishna, that which can make Krishna subservient to that person. How do we need to take care of it? We need to protect it much more than our life. So the reason Rupa Goswami is very nicely elaborating, and why Acharyas are giving a detailed explanation, which might sound like an over-exaggeration to the devotion, but it is actually nothing but tip of an iceberg what this pure devotional service can do to us. So the second set of reflection that I want to say is how this pure devotional service has identifiable characteristics of getting rid of our klesha, getting rid of all the accumulated unwanted things which are classified into these 5 categories that we spoke about, and also bring in all auspiciousness. There are more characteristics, but that we can leave it for the future discussions. The third set of points that we are going to discuss is something that we have not spoken before, and which is very relevant for all the practicing devotees. So please reflect upon them. They are from Madhurya Kadambini. So it's a very nice compilation about sadhana bhakti. In Madhurya Kadambini, a detailed analysis about our sadhana bhakti is being done. So what I'm going to present now is just a small portion from that, which defines the practitioner's mindset when he is in the context that we just spoke about now in this particular shloka, where he is knowing there's a real creeper. He is also conscious there is a fake creeper, or creeper looks like a real one but it is actually a weed, and he is trying to differentiate, struggle, identify, and try to settle himself in his devotional life. What happens through his mindset is what is being explained by the Acharya in Madhurya Kadambini. So there are 6 different stages that are being explained, and those 6 different stages. So what happens is that this is under the category of Bhajana Kriya. So we have Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, and Bhajana Kriya. So Shraddha, basically the faith, are of 2 categories. One is Swabhaviki Shraddha. Second is Baladut Padita Shraddha. Swabhaviki means that is spontaneous faith. We have developed faith spontaneously because of our high parentage, because of our previous pious activities. But the second category is because somebody gave us, helped us, forced us, trained us. So with that Shraddha, we went into Sadhu Sangha, and in Sadhu Sangha we do Bhajana. So Bhajana Kriya has got 2 categories. One category is called Nishtita, which means Nishta, Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava, Prema later. But there's another category of bhajana, which is called anishtita, unsteady devotional service. This unsteady devotional service is something that we all experience day in, day out. Especially as sadhakas, we have this difficulty of not being able to be firmly fixed in our devotional service because of so many distractions, because of so many disturbances. So today we are going to discuss about 6 different stages or 6 different progresses of unsteady devotional service. This is just to recognize what's going on within ourselves, and in the future sessions we'll discuss about how to work on them, because we won't have time to discuss both identifying as well as solution. So in our analysis about pure devotional service, this is extremely important to analyze, because if you don't analyze, we won't improve. If you recollect our last week's discussion, unless you record, unless you review, unless you try to revise and regulate, we won't be able to rejoice in our devotional life. So for recording, we need to know what to record and how to record. So these particular 6 stages that are spoken by which are spoken in Madhya Lila will help us. So in bhajana kriya, as I said, there are 2 categories. One is unsteady bhajana, another is steady bhajana, which is anishtita bhakti bhajana and nishtita bhajana. We are not talking about nishtita now. Let's talk about unsteady devotional service, unsteady bhajana kriya. So there are 6 stages. Number 1, the first stage, that is called Utsahamayi. Utsahamayi is about false confidence, or one may be puffed up with enthusiasm. So we need to understand that in our devotional life, whilst we are trying to practice Krishna consciousness, we may have some false enthusiasm, or we call it as over enthusiasm, or we call it something called as overconfidence, which may keep our devotional life unsteady. So Madhurya Kadambini wants us to help us recognize them. Utsaha is very important, but Utsahamai is something that we need to be careful. If we are not very careful about our over enthusiasm, we may land up in committing some offenses which may kill the real creeper. So the reason this particular 6 verses or 6 stages are relevant to this context is, as soon as an intelligent devotee sees an unwanted creeper growing beside the original creeper, he must cut it down instantly. I'm reading the translation of today's verse. Then the real creeper, the Bhakti Lata, grows nicely, returns home back to Godhead, and seeks shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. So Utsaha is a real creeper, part of the real creeper. Utsahamai means false confidence or puffed up with enthusiasm, which we need to be careful about. We cannot, let's say I'm enthusiastic, but if it is false confidence or overconfidence or over enthusiasm or puffed up enthusiasm that I am somebody great, then this will become detrimental to devotional life. The second that is being spoken about is called Ghana Tarala, sporadic endeavor, being sometimes diligent and other times negligent. It is very nicely explained. And it's very obvious if we reflect upon ourselves that we have this behavior seen in us many times. We are very sporadic in our endeavor and devotional life. At some point in time, we are extremely vigilant, doing things very carefully, doing things very meticulously. And at other times, we are negligent. So this is a bit development from the previous stage, but it's still not the real creeper. Because as per our previous discussions, one of the important qualities, characteristics that is expected out of a sadhaka is consistency. Unless somebody is consistent in his devotional life, he is still not situated in the mode of goodness. Consistency in devotional life, consistency in practicing Krishna consciousness is something very important, because inconsistent behavior still not favors devotional life. It is still in the mode of passion. So hence this Ganatarala, which means sporadic behavior or sporadic endeavor. We see sometimes devotees are very enthusiastic, coming forward, doing devotional service, keeping up fasting, doing some extra endeavor to serve the Lord, devotees. At other times they will be completely laid back and don't even come for Mangalarti, not even chant their rounds, not even read their books, not even be courteous enough to serve Vaishnavas. So kind of mixed behavior. So this a devotee should be very careful about, because of our diligence at times we may pat on our back saying that, you know what, I am nice. But because of our inconsistency, we should still give a very important warning to our own devotional life and be careful about it. So the reason the second stage is spoken about is it may differentiate from the real creeper and help us to identify the false one. So this is talking about sporadic and inconsistent behavior. The third that is spoken about here of unsteady bhajana kriya is called vyuda vikalpa, which means indecision or extensive speculation. This explains the mind spends time pondering on whether to renounce or to acquire, and give different rationalization and some Krishna consciousness justification. This is called Vyuda Vikalpa. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is very, very eloquent Acharya. The reason he is giving all this details and depth is to help us recognize them and not to fall prey thinking that it is devotion. It is something to be worked upon and still beaten upon. So Vyuda Vikalpa means indecision or extensive speculation is a stage. And nobody is saying this is right or wrong, or it's a stage we need to recognize and not to falsely accept as a devotionally settled stage. We need to accept it as something that we need to study, something that we need to improve upon. So many a times in our devotional life, as I spoke last week, at some stage we feel like acquiring things in our devotional life, and we have a lot of justification why I need to acquire them. At another stage we feel that why did I acquire all of them? They are just a disturbance. Even though they may seemingly look like something devotionally supportive, but the more we go deeper into Krishna consciousness, What only supports us, helps us, is our sincerity and love for Krishna. Rest everything else is going to become disturbance. To an extent, Rupa Goswami explains, even the knowledge that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead became a disturbance to gopis' love for Krishna, so that they were completely purified of the knowledge also and had only pure love for the Supreme Lord. So at one particular stage where our devotional service is reaching the epitome, highest stage, even the knowledge that we are acquiring will become a disturbance, because when you know Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, you won't be able to love him, you can only respect him. But in Vrindavan, Krishna doesn't want respect. In Vrindavan, Krishna wants love. In Vrindavan, Krishna enjoys all the different rasas of his dear devotees. So, viewed as Vikalpa is a stage of indecision, where we keep pondering between to acquire or to reject. In my earlier days in Krishna consciousness, I used to be, having a craze for having a very wonderful embroidery decked up bead bag. We used to have amongst devotees a very big craze. Those days, there were new concept of the bead bags with a lot of embroidery work. Jagannath, Prabhupada, Gaurnitai, Tulsi Maharani, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So those were new concepts. I'm talking about 1995, 96, those days. So whoever is flaunting a embroidery bead bag, they would be having a wow, it's very some new attractions. So at one time I used to have a lot of new bead bags. I used to have different fancy T-shirts with Krishna's picture. I lost my heart in Mayapur. I lost my heart in Vrindavan. Some Prabhupada's pictures. I used to have at one point almost 35, 40 T-shirts. Wherever I used to go, I used to pick up them. To think that, wow, this is devotionally supporting. It did give me some enthusiasm, but after a point in time, I realized that Krishna consciousness is beyond a T-shirt. Krishna consciousness is beyond bead bag. It's good for some time, for developing some amount of faith, that's fine. But we need to grow up. We need to go more. So later then we started giving that up. Tyaktva turnamasesh mandalapati shrenim tasadatu chavat. Last week we discussed this. Goswamis, they just gave up all the aristocracy and false designations. To an extent, they gave up even their varnas. They gave up their ashramas. They just focused only on pure devotional service. So the third stage that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks in Madhurya Kadambini is Yuda Vikalpa. The fourth stage that he is speaking about is called Vishaya Sangara. Vishaya Sangara means struggle with the senses or inability to give up sense enjoyment. The fourth stage is pretty interesting. It's because once we are progressing in devotional life, when we are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, when we are associating with devotees, when we are honoring prasadam, when we are visiting dham, when we are in front of the Lord and taking darshan, we definitely feel purifying. We definitely feel elated. We definitely feel satisfied. But what happens is that the propensity to enjoy the senses, since it has not completely gone away from us, we somehow try to superimpose that propensity in our devotional life and make a mixture out of it. That is why it is called Mishra Bhakti. Devotion with some adulteration. So we try to seek some sense enjoyment even in devotional aspect. Probably we had given up the gross sense enjoyment from the perspective of illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, gambling. But some subtle variables, some subtle enjoyment, some subtle pleasure-seeking propensity is still not gone. Because of it not gone, we seek them even in our devotional life. We seek them in all the service that we do. We tag us along wherever we do devotional service, not only to remember about Krishna, but also to remember about us and how we need to get some pleasure out of it. So this propensity is identified as Vishaya Sangara. So what is being notified here is, while the service that you are doing is great, the superimposing that you are doing is something to be removed. So don't identify yourself for what you are doing. Rather do it as a sincere servant of your spiritual master and does not have any identification beyond that. And just give all the credit to your predecessors and does not have any tag attached to us. So the fourth stage that is spoken about is we have a struggle. Whilst I do not want to carry it with me, but I still have this. That is why Prahlad Maharaj makes a prayer to Nrsingadev. What is that prayer? 7th canto, 10th chapter, text number 7. Yadi dasyasi me kaman varam stvam varadarshaba kamanam hridya samroham bhavatastu vrnevaram. Prahlad Maharaj prays, Yadi dasyasi me kaman varam stvam varadarshaba. My dear Nrsingadev, if you really want to bestow me with some benediction, please give me a benediction to get rid of the sense gratificatory propensity within my heart, which is the biggest obstacle for performing devotional service to you. So I encourage all the students to whom I teach to by heart this prayer along with the meaning, and every time when they are in front of the Lord, they please offer this prayer. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 10th chapter, text number 7. So that is about the fourth stage of unstudied devotional service. The fifth stage of unstudied devotional service is about Niyamakshana, inability to uphold vows, which results in the inability to improve in one's devotional service. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that inability to uphold vows, we have this big problem in our initiation of keeping up our initiation vows. We struggle because of so many external situations. So this is actually an identified stage we go through because of our unsteadiness. The root cause of all these things is already spoken about as our first reflection as various kleshas. And what is the solution is something that we will speak in the future class. But the point here is Niyamakshana. The mindset is that we are so much struggling to keep the vows, and because of not able to keep up the vows, we are not able to improve upon in our devotional life. This stage, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur identifies as Niyamakshana. It is not sometimes gross or intentional, giving up, but it's called slipping. We keep slipping. We keep falling down and rise up. It is already identified as a stage in our devotional progress, and at the same time a warning that please be wary of it. The warning is given in this particular translation by Srila Prabhupada, in the part of Srila Prabhupada where he says, if one is misled by unwanted creepers and is victimized, he cannot make progress back to Godhead. Rather, he remains within the material world and engages in activities having thing to do with pure devotional service. So, Prabhupada warns here saying that probably this quality may give rise to elevation to heavenly planets. But that's not what we are supposed to get out of pure devotional service. So we are being warned here. And last point in this 6 stages of unstudied devotional progress is Taranga Rangini. Enjoying the facility offered by bhakti, that is material gain, worship and position. And these stage of Taranga Rangini is where we are kind of used to the benefits of pure devotional service and dwelling on them and swaying between the moods. Sometimes we are in the mood, it's like a pendulum stage. One time we feel like completely not so attached to the material gain. But here it is explained that if we are not careful enough in the bhakti process, then we may get carried away and start enjoying the benefits offered by bhakti, because bhakti does offer benefits. You will be glorified, you will be appreciated, you will have followers, you will have dakshina coming in, you will have appreciation, you will be given position. So if you think it is Krishna's mercy upon us, probably yes, but at the same time it is also a warning that we need to be careful about in holding all of them with us. They are all sharp knives. If the knives are not handled very carefully, they may cut us and we may bleed. So the 6th stage that is spoken about is called Taranga Rangini. These are the weeds around the creeper of bhakti that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur identifies them in Madhurya Kadambini. So when we are growing this Bhakti Lata Bij, when we are watering this Bhakti Lata Bij, whilst in our previous shloka very nicely explained about some of the unwanted creepers that Prabhupada explains as puja, labha, pratishtha, jiva, himsa and various things. These are the 6 stages that we just spoke about by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Madhurya Kadambini. So, to conclude, we had 3 sets of reflection. First set of reflection defined about devotion and pure devotion. Devotion is spoken about how to get rid of our upadhis and serve the Supreme Lord, and how we define that as a 2-dimensional definition. When we get rid of our upadhi, when we are cleansed about our false designation, we will be able to serve the Supreme Lord. When we serve the Supreme Lord, when our false designations are gone, our upadhis are completely clean, and we become a clean person. And when we keep doing this, we need to grow up and come to the stage of pure devotional service. And pure devotional service is very nicely explained by Rupa Goswami about something for which there is no other material motives, no other beneficial motives, neither philosophical motives. It is purely meant to serve the Supreme Lord, following the footsteps of Acharyas. We discussed about 3 primary characteristics that Srila Prabhupada elaborates in 3rd Canto 29th chapter, text number 11, 12 or 12, 13, where he explains ahaituki, which means pure devotional service to be done without any reason, avyavahita, which means pure devotional service to be done without cessation, and avichinna, which means pure devotional service to be done without any interruptions. Rupa Goswami Path further explains 6 more characteristics of pure devotional service, of which we spoke about 2 of them is Kleshagni, getting rid of all the kleshas. We discussed 5 different types of kleshas: ignorance, false ego, attachment, hatred, and fear of death. And how devotional service also brings in all auspiciousness to an extent that even if one sincere soul practicing Krishna consciousness in some part of the world can actually uplift the humanity at large by his devotional consciousness. That is the power of your devotional service. And we discussed about how there are 6 different stages, the 6 different stages of unsteady devotional progress. Bhajana Kriya has got Nishtita and Anishtita. The 6 unsteady stages in devotional progress are Utsahamayi, which means false confidence or puffed up with enthusiasm. Ghanatarala, which means sporadic endeavor, being sometimes diligent and other times negligent. Vyuda Vikalpa, which means indecision or extensive speculation. And 4th is Vishaya Sangara, which means struggle with the senses or inability to give up sense enjoyment. 5th is Niyamakshana, inability to uphold vows, which results in inability to improve our devotional life. And 6th is Taranga Rangini, which means enjoying the facilities offered by Bhakti. Apart from the previously listed unwanted creepers, these are the ones which are listed in Madhurya Kadambini by Vaishnava Chakravarti Thakur. And as Prabhupada explains, as an intelligent devotee, we need to be careful enough in uprooting them and making sure we water and fence our Bhakti Lata Bij. We will discuss in our future classes of how to handle this unsteady progress by some set of qualities and characteristics. With this, I end here. Hare Krishna. If there are any questions or comments, we can discuss.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Joined a bit late, but the class was very beautiful. Thank you for giving these from Madhurya Kadambini, especially something that I was thinking today while you were talking is about the inconsistency in the enthusiasm, sporadic enthusiasm. So that is something I felt I should work on. So thank you so much for this class. I think it gives a lot of insight on what we are doing on a regular basis. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for the wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Also, very, very instructive class. Thank you very much. I especially like the way you said how it's not a fall down, but it's a slip, and it illustrates nicely how we tend to we don't think it's a big thing. It's just a little slip, but those slips can be a slippery slope, as they say. So, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Anybody has any questions?
I have one question. Like sometimes
I'm not able to hear. Can you come a little closer to the microphone?
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Now you can hear.
Yeah, sure.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have one question. Like sometimes what happens that sometimes we are not healthy, so much healthy that we are not able to complete our sadhana, and we are not able to sit for a long time. So is it correct that we can read while we are lying? So is it we should do that, or we should not do when we are unhealthy, when we are not feeling good? So is it correct we should do like that or not?
It's very important to understand that devotional service is not a smarta process. It is a process of purely full of our love and emotions for the Supreme Lord, and definitely we need to have some respect, to be given to the process. But Krishna is not a impractical military man where he expects you to sit straight with such a 45-degree or 90-degree angle posture to do your devotional sadhana. No. What is more important is our consciousness in terms of why I am doing this. And in fact, that's a very nice story where a person who's constantly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, so he had a habit of regularly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra that he can't stop himself even for a minute. He got so much into that habit that he constantly go on chanting. So one day he was attending nature's call, or he had a need to go to nature's call. So he was just thinking that how can I chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra while I'm doing my morning duty. But then he said it's unclean place, so I should not chant the holy name of the Lord. But then he couldn't control his tongue, kept on chanting. So while he was doing his morning duty, he kept on holding his tongue, that he let him not chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That's when a very small boy in a village, those days, people have a habit of going fields. The small boy came and said that, what if you die now? So don't worry, you keep chanting. For chanting, there is no problem. And with respect to reading and with respect to hearing lectures, if you are really unwell, for sure, Krishna is not going to hold you responsible. Definitely there is a component of respect, but at the same time, you can definitely find ways and means to not to keep the book near your legs, not to keep the book in a dirty place, not to keep the book near our tissues, cleaning our nose. Just see to that it is kept in a nice place, but otherwise make sure that the devotional service is done than the posture. And there's a book called Deity Worship Darshana. It's a magazine. Once I read, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj is instructing Mataji that if she was asking a question that I am worshipping my Gopal, and what if I am not clean? What am I supposed to do? Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Maharaj says a very nice answer, very bold answer. He says that if you are worshipping Gopalji or Krishna, if you are unclean, and if there is no other way by which your Gopalji can be fed, no other way, absolutely nobody can take care of it, no other way somebody can take care of it, then you can take a head bath and feed them. So the devotional service is beyond all sorts of external boundaries. So we need to know how to balance, where to balance, where to rationalize them. Okay?
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. I got the answer. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai.
Yes. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, श्री श्री चैतन्य चरितामृत की जय, हिज ग्रेस राम गिरिधारी प्रभु की जय। हरे कृष्णा। कोटि वैष्णव।